Hello and welcome to a new video on IGCSE mathematics. In this video, we should be discussing solving trig equations. Find x when tan x equals 1 over radical 3. So the idea here is to use your calculator and to use the inverse trig functions. These are obtained or accessed by clicking on Shift and then tan in this case. So we're going to click on Shift tan and the calculator will display this following expression. It's not tan power -1, it's what we call inverse tan. And then we're just going to write the fraction that we are given. So inverse tan 1 over radical 3 like this. On the calculator, make sure that your mode is set to degrees, not radians. So this will give you on the calculator 30. And then we want to discuss how to get other possible values. So we use something called the asterisk rule. A, S, T, C. So S stands for sine. T, T capital or T small or whatever stands for tan. And C stands for cosine. And A stands for all because everything is positive in quadrant 1. You should also remember these values. So here we're just going to write calculator in A. And for S, we're going to write 180 minus. For T, we're going to write 180 plus. And for C, we're going to write 360 minus. So you should remember this diagram as it is the key to answering all trig problems. This is plus, not times, of course. Now, here we have tan, so T. So T and positive means that we use the letter T itself and the letter A. So the calculator value, which in this case is 30, and we use the quadrant of T, which is 180 plus. So our answers are going to be 30, as well as 180 plus 30, which is 210. Our final answers are going to be 30 and 210. And these are the correct answers here. Solve the equation tan x equals 11.43. So again, first we click on Shift and then tan. We get this expression here on the calculator. And then we just write 11.43 as it is. So Shift tan 11.43. This gives us 84.999. So basically 85. And then we want to get the other value. So we remember the asterisk rule, ASTC. Tan and positive gives us A and T. A is the calculator value. T is 180 plus. So we're just going to do 180 plus our answer as well. So 180 plus 85 equals 265. So it's either 85 or 265. These are the final answers. So now we have cosine x equals -half. So the way I do it is as follows. I just ignore the negative at the beginning. I do Shift cosine again. And I get this expression. And then I write half without the negative. On the calculator, this gives us 60. And then I take the negative into account when I'm getting the asterisk rule values. So ASTC. Here we have cosine. If cosine were positive, we would take the A and the C. So A is always the positive value. And because this is cosine, so we would take the quadrant of C as well. I remind you that this is 360 minus. This is the actual calculator value. This is 180 plus, and this is 180 minus. Now, since cosine here is negative, I'm not going to take A and C. I'm going to take S and T instead. So S and T are basically 180 minus. So 180 minus 60 minus the calculator value and 180 plus the calculator value. So we have 120 and 240. So our final answers are going to be 120, 240, and we ignore the actual value that we got from the calculator because here it's negative, so we're not taking the calculator value, we're not taking the quadrant A, we're taking S and T. So 120 and 240 are the correct answers here. Here we have cosine x equals 0.21, and they want the reflex angle x. So what does that mean? Reflex means it's an angle greater than 180. Again, remember the asterisk rule. Here we have cosine and positive. Cosine and positive means we take the A and the C. So the A is the calculator value and the C is the 360 minus. Now, the calculator value is obtained by doing shift cosine 0.21. And this gives us 77.877. So 77.9 roughly. But this is not the angle they want. They don't want all the possibilities. If they wanted all the solutions, we would write this angle and the C quadrant angle as well. So 360 minus 77.9. However, because here they just want the reflex, so our final answer is only going to be this answer. So 360 minus 77.9. This gives us 282.1 as a final answer. Again, had they just said find all the solutions, we would have taken this answer along with this answer. However, because they just want the reflex, so they just want the angle that is greater than 180, so we are sticking with this answer only as our final answer. So 282.1 is the correct answer. Here we have 3 sine x plus 1 equals 0. So let's first isolate the sine x. Let's take the 1 to the other side. So we get 3 sine x equals negative 1. And then we divide by 3 on both sides. So we get sine x equals negative 1 over 3. So here we have sine and negative. If I will remind you with the asterisk rule, ASTC. So if we have sine and positive, we take the S, of course, and we take the A, which is always positive. However, since here the sign comes with a negative value, so we're going to take actually T and C. So basically 180 plus and 360 minus. Also be reminded that we ignore the negative when we're entering the value on the calculator. So we just press shift sign and we put in the fraction without the negative. So shift sign 1 over 3. This equals 19.5. This is the calculator value. This is quadrant A. We're not going to take that into account. We're going to do 180 plus 19.5, 360 minus 19.5. So this gives us 199.5. And this here gives us 340.5. These are our final answers. So we just write them down, 199.5 and 340.5. These are the correct answers here as well. Solve the equation 3 sine x plus 1 equals 0. It's kind of similar to the previous question, but not quite. Actually, it's exactly the same as the previous question. Never mind. This is exactly the same, and the answer will be exactly the same again, 199.5 and 340.5. Bear in mind that this is exactly the same question, but these are two different exams. So this is June 22, paper 2, version 2. And then here, this is June 23, paper 4, version 3. So this is a completely different exam. However, strangely enough, it's the exact same question as before. So we can just skip and move on. Here we have 3 sine x plus 3 equals 1. We take the 3 to the other side. We get 3 sine x equals negative 2. And then we divide by 3. So sine x equals negative 2 over 3. Now, we want to find x. So remember, we do shift sign positive 2/3. And the negative sign affects our choice of quadrants in the asterisk rule. So for the asterisk rule here, we have S and negative. So instead of picking A and S, we're going to pick the other two quadrants, which are T and C. So shift sign 2/3 on the calculator gives us 41.8. So this is equal to 41.8. This is the calculator value for the A quadrant solution. So we're ignoring that and we're taking T and C. Remember that T is 180 plus and C is 360 minus. So therefore, we do 180 plus and 360 minus. 180 plus 41.8, 360 minus 41.8. So in the first one, we get 221.8. In the second one, we get 318.2, and these are our final answers. So 221.8 and 318.2 are the final answers to this problem. And these are the correct answers. Here we have 5 cosine x plus 3 equals 0. So first we isolate the cosine x. We take the 3 to the other side. We get 5 cosine x equals negative 3. We divide by 5 on both sides. So cosine x equals negative 3/5. So we do shift cosine positive 3/5. And this gets us on the calculator a value of 53.13. Now, this is cosine and negative. So we have the asterisk rule. For cosine and positive, we would take A and C. So for cosine and negative, we would take S and T. So in this case, 180 minus and 180 plus. So we have 180 minus 53.13 and 180 plus 53.13. 180 minus 53.13 gives us 126.87. And 180 plus 53.13 this gives us 233.13. And these are our final answers. So 126.9, which is what we got 126.87, so that's okay. And 233.13 is also okay. Here we have 5 sine x plus 4. So first we take the 4 to the other side. We get 5 sine x equals negative 4. We divide by 5, so sine x equals negative 4/5. So we attempt shift sign positive 4/5. So shift sign positive 4/5 gives us 53.13. And using the asterisk rule, we determine which quadrants to use. So this is sine and negative. So we're actually going to go with T and C, 180 plus and 360 minus. So we're going to do 180 plus 53.13 and 360 minus 53.13. So 180 plus 53.13 gives us 71.13. 360 minus 53.13 gives us 306.87. We can write them correct to 1 decimal place. That will be sufficient. We can write just 71.1 maybe. And 306.9 as our final answers. I seem to have made a mistake here. Okay, so I made a small calculation mistake. I apologize about that. Of course, 180 plus 53 can never give us 71. This might have been just a calculator typo or something. So let me try this again. 180 plus 53.13 is actually 233.13. So the final answer here would be 233.1, as evidenced by the marking scheme. So it's the same exact concept. I just made a small calculator mistake. Here we have 5 sine x equals -3. You can just divide by 5. So sine x equals -3 over 5. We start by doing shift sign +3 over 5. On the calculator, shift sign 3 over 5 gives us 36.869, so 36.87. But since this is negative, so we're going to not take A or S. We're not going to take the calculator value or the S quadrant. We're going to go with T and C instead, 180 plus and 360 minus. So we have here 180 plus 36.87 and 360 minus 36.87. And we use the calculator to find these values. 180 plus 36.87 gives us 216.87. 360 minus 36.87 gives us 323.13. So to one decimal place, we can write them as 216.9 and 323.1. So these are the correct answers here as well. Here we have 3 minus 2 sine x equals 13 over 4. This is slightly more complicated. However, it's just different algebra with the same trigonometric technique. We'll first take the 3 to the other side, so we get -2 sine x equals 13 over 4 minus 3. This is equal to 1 over 4. We divide by -2, so sine x will equal -1 over 8. I'm just going to take this to the other side as divided by -2. So we get -1 over 8. So first we attempt shift sign +1 over 8 on the calculator. Always make sure that your calculator is on degrees. So shift sign 1 over 8 gives us 7.18. Now, this is sine and negative because here the final equation was sine x equals something negative. So we're not going to use A or S. We're going to use T and C. So we're doing 180 plus and 360 minus. So again, we do 180 plus 7.18 and 360 minus 7.18. 180 plus 7.18 gives us 187.18. 360 minus 7.18 is 352.82. Now, we can write these values, correct one decimal place, that would be sufficient. So 187.2 and 352.8. These are our final answers. 187.2 and 352.8 are the correct answers here. Now for our final question. This is slightly more challenging. We first are required to solve the simultaneous equations. So you can use elimination or substitution. I personally like substitution better, so I'm just going to rewrite this as P equals Q minus half. I'm going to put it here, so 2 times Q minus half plus Q equals 2. And we are going to expand. So 2Q minus 1 plus Q equals 2. We take the 1 to the other side. -1 becomes +1, so this is equal to 3. 2Q plus Q is 3Q. So 3q equals 3. Divide by 3, you get q equals 1. Now you put q here as 1, so p equals half. So our solutions here are p equals half and q equals 1. Here, elimination would have been easier. However, substitution works for any type of simultaneous equations, whether they're linear or quadratic. So I just find it easier to always use substitution. In all cases, we know that it will work. So anyway, we now have p equals half and q equals 1. So if you look at double I, you will see that it's exactly the same as I. If we replace p with sine u and q with cosine v, this becomes exactly the same as the equation above. So you have here p and you have here q. So 2p plus q equals 2 and p minus q equals negative half. So we don't really need to work our way through the equation again. We can use the solutions that we got above to substitute p and q. So here sine u is equal to half and cosine v is equal to 1. So these are both positive. For u, we're going to say shift sign half. So shift sign half gives us 30. And using the asterisk rule, this is sine and positive. So we're going to take the a and the s. So we're going to take the calculator value as it is. And we're going to take the 180 minus as well. So it's either 30 or 180 minus 30, which is 150. So for u, we have 30 or 150. Then for v, we have shift cosine 1. And this is going to give us 0. Now, this is cosine and positive, so we're going to take the calculator value as is, and we're going to take the cosine, which is the 360 minus. So we're also going to do 360 minus the answer. 360 minus 0 equals 360. So therefore, we're just going to write 0 and 360 here. So half and 1 are correct for I, 30 and 150 for U, and 0 and 360 for V. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope this has been beneficial. Thank you for watching.